And a hawk is a carnivore. It eats mice. So it's a tertiary predator usually, because it eats mice, which then eat insects, which eat the plants. So it's very high up in the food chain. And those are a very important predator. They keep the rodent populations very down. And it's good to have those because a lot of the larger animals in this area, like mountain lions and black bears, these populations were hunted to extinction. They are still around in other areas. And even bobcats and other animals, larger mammal predators have been hunted, especially because they bothered the farmers. So those aren't around anymore, and we rely on hawks and even vultures, which eat the dead carrion. And those are important predators in this ecosystem, and if we find any, we might film them later.
This is a loadic ecosystem. The water's moving fast down the stream. Oxygen comes in, and also the nutrients are passing by, so this is actually very healthy and brings in lots of food and nutrients for the organisms in these local environments.
On the other hand, this is an example of a lentic ecosystem. The water's not moving as fast, there's less nutrients, but it's a lot slower, and also that makes it a lot wider. So there's not as many nutrients, there's not going to find as many organisms in here. So in like the Lodic, you find a lot more larvae. A lot of the larvae of insects survive there, but some of the ones that can't survive in the fast-moving water will live here. And so the insects, which are very important to the ecosystem, they eat tons of things, and they're food for a lot of the larger organisms. Their larvae all start out pretty much in this streams area. So these streams are incredibly important for the entire ecosystem of the forest. There used to be a farm, Broadmoor. Evidence of that. And in New England area, the main rock is granite, and there is tons of granite. So what the farmers did, they couldn't farm with all that granite, so they had to just put it all on these big walls throughout their property to get rid of it so they could actually build their farms. So that's what this wall is doing here. And this is just all granite, and this wall throughout New England everywhere. Well, and this millstone used to grind wheat into flour, and the farmers would use that, and they'd use the water power of this waterfall behind me. It's a man-made waterfall. They jammed it up, and they had the water pour over it, and this power of the water drove the millstones around, and they ground the wheat into flour using that. And so this is when the farmers were using it. So this isn't natural, and this is an example of how man has used this area before. And now it's a natural area anymore, and they don't really do that anymore.
Do you hear any of the stream or the birds? No, you just hear the lawnmower right now. In the distance, behind a tree right now, but coming back out. He's cutting grass in the middle of Broadmoor, which is a park in Natick. Remember that these ecosystems are threatened. When you see the cut grass of the lawnmower, you wonder about the deer ticks. Because of course, long grass carries deer ticks. Lyme disease originated in Lyme, Connecticut, and is a dangerous disease. Of course, nobody wants to get bitten by a tick, but a tick with Lyme disease is even more dangerous. So these paths that the man was mowing are for protection mostly from that disease. That's all. Hello, and your name is?
My name's Chuckle Brush. I'm the property manager here at Broadmoor.
Okay. And so what are some of the things that you do?
Oh, we clear all the trails. We maintain all the fields. We mow the fields after nesting season, which is July 15th. Mow the trails. I do maintain the building, nature center.
Now you use a lawnmower obviously to clear a lot of the trails. Does the sound from that bother some visitors or?
Oh, it probably does. We try to do it in the middle of the week when there are less visitors here. We don't do it on the weekends. But we have to keep the trails that have grass on them, we have to keep the grass down because ticks will get in the trails, and then people will get ticks, and if they wander off into the high grass, they'll get ticks anyway.
That's true. And then, do you have any problems with, trash here, litter?
We have high school kids come and have parties up at one of our actually it's a waterfall up here, mill sites. We had that happen. It's slowed down some, but it usually happens twice a month. fires, beer cans.
Well, okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
All right.
The woolly adelgid is an invasive species that is a large threat to the hemlock trees. It feeds on the hemlock trees, and it looks like these little white balls that you can see in the video. They're sort of egg sacs. And it was introduced from Asia to the Pacific Northwest in 1924, and it spread to New England by around 1953. All populations are asexually reproducing females with 2 generations per year. Now, it lacks predators, and so it is able to damage the trees heavily and survive still. It also sucks fluids from the trees and injects toxins into the trees.
This plant here is the American chestnut, Castanea dentata, and it's got these 2 sort of leaves. And this tree is one of the most dominant trees in the forest, in the deciduous forest, until a tree introduced from Asia brought over a chestnut blight, which was a disease that killed most of the trees. So now you're never going to find those huge chestnut trees, or at least American chestnut trees, that used to be all over the forest. But what did happen is that from those dead trees, new trees will grow because they can generate from parts of the old tree. And these trees will eventually catch the chestnut blight and die, like this tree behind it has, with that dead tree there, and a new chestnut has already grown up, and the original chestnut is already far dead. And actually, if you come zoom in on this tree, another interesting thing is this little caterpillar you'll find. Not sure exactly what type it is, but these are some of the biggest eaters of vegetation. That's where these holes in the leaves come from. So behind me is evidence of some logging, which is a major thing that has threatened the forest of this area, especially forests in other areas more in the west. And what people do is they need wood, so they cut down the trees, usually chainsaws now, and they just completely clear cut whole areas. It's not so big here, but that's what they do, and that's one reason there was all these forests have been just completely chopped down. And this forest is definitely not the original forest, and hardly any of the original forest is left. This forest has all grown in the last couple hundred years. So this is all fairly new forest, and the old forest was very big, and you're not going to find those huge 300-year-old trees anymore like you used to, because they've all been logged and cut down, and this is all new growth. So the secondary growth of the deciduous forest is where more of the gymnosperms have come from, and more of the coniferous forest has come from secondary growth. And originally it was all pretty much deciduous, just big deciduous trees. And since logging, like what's happened behind me, has taken that away. And it's also destroyed a lot of habitats of the animals we've seen, like the deer.
Broadmoor is nice, isn't it? Except when residential homes invade the property. This is an example of a community that wants to push in to a park. And this is what threatens such wildlife preserves all over the world. It's people, it's populations of people growing and building homes as large as this one.